darkness, stone, and water-hide worlds most never see. New caves and underwater tunnels continue to attract explorers, despite claiming so many lives. In these dangerous places where help cannot reach, small mistakes turn deadly in seconds, and courage alone isn't always enough to survive. Valhalla Cave Tragedy. On November 23, 2019, 5 college students from Purdue University arrived at Valhalla Cave in Alabama. What had drawn them to this remote spot in Jackson County? The thrill of adventure and the challenge of conquering one of America's most dangerous cave systems. For 3 weeks, they had planned this trip, studying online forums, gathering specialized equipment, and securing their $5 permit from the Southeastern Cave Conservancy. Did they understand the true risks that awaited them? Perhaps not. Why was Valhalla Cave so feared among professional cavers? Its massive 227-foot entrance pit, a vertical drop deeper than a 20-story building. The limestone shaft, formed over thousands of years by acidic rainwater, required technical rope skills and proper safety gear to descend. What was an exciting challenge for experienced cavers would become a death trap for the unprepared. At 12:30 p.m., despite their enthusiasm, the group faced a critical problem. Their longest rope measured only 180 feet, far short of the 227-foot drop, plus the extra 20 feet needed for proper anchoring. What does safety protocol require for such descents? A single rope long enough to cover the entire vertical distance. What options did they have? They could abandon the attempt or drive 30 minutes to the nearest outdoor store for proper equipment. Instead, they made a decision that would prove fatal within the next 90 minutes. How did they attempt to solve their problem? They tied 2 ropes together using a double fisherman's knot. While this knot is known for its strength in climbing circles, where did it create a dangerous situation? The connection point ended up positioned just 12 feet below the pit's edge. What dangerous maneuver would this force each caver to perform? Anyone rappelling down would have to stop while dangling in midair, with nothing but 215 feet of empty space below, unclip from the upper rope and reattach to the lower rope before continuing downward. Cave safety experts recommend this complex transition only be attempted with a backup belayer and after extensive training. Did any of these students have such training? Who would be first to face the deadly challenge? Trevor Cole, 21, a junior engineering student, stepped forward as the most confident of the group. Had he truly mastered such dangerous maneuvers? Not quite. He had passed similar knots twice before, but only in a controlled gym environment with an instructor standing by. "I've done this before," Trevor assured the others at 1:40 p.m. Could his weekend rock climbing course prepare him for the unforgiving reality of Valhalla's depths? His 4 friends trusted his confidence, and without further discussion, he volunteered to lead the descent. How carefully did Trevor prepare? He methodically checked every piece of his equipment, tightening his harness until it was snug around his waist and thighs, securing his helmet with its 300-lumen headlamp, verifying his aluminum carabiner was properly locked, and ensuring his rappel rack was correctly attached to the rope. At 1:45 p.m., satisfied with his preparations, what fateful action did Trevor take? He clipped his full body weight to the rope system, leaned back over the massive void, and began his descent into the yawning abyss of Valhalla Cave. His friends watched from the rim, unaware that they would never see him alive again. What happened as Trevor backed over the edge? Gravity instantly took hold, pulling him downward into darkness. The nylon rope slid smoothly through his metal rappel rack at 3 feet per second, the friction bars controlling his speed as he descended. The temperature dropped to 55 degrees as he entered the cave's constant climate. How deep was Trevor when he faced his first challenge? After descending about 30 feet, his headlamp caught the bright yellow and blue weave of the double fisherman's knot below him. The knot created a bulky junction that would soon block his rappel device from advancing further. At 42 feet down, with another 185 feet of empty space below, what critical maneuver did Trevor now need to perform? It was time to prepare for the life or death transition between ropes. Why is crossing a knot mid-rappel considered one of caving's most dangerous maneuvers? The procedure requires absolute precision. One wrong move can be fatal. What complex sequence did Trevor need to perform? He had to stop completely, secure himself with a safety tether, unclip his main device from the upper rope, attach it to the lower rope, and continue downward, all while hanging 200 feet above solid rock with nothing beneath him. At 1:52 p.m., what did Trevor do to stabilize himself? He braced his boots against the slippery wall, the rubber soles searching for any grip on the smooth, damp surface. He locked off his rappel rack with a firm twist, temporarily stopping his descent at precisely 42 feet down. With what level of skill did Trevor begin the transition? His fingers, already stiffening in the cave's chill, moved with practiced precision as he attached his safety tether to the rope above the knot. What terrifying moment came next? He had to unclip his main rappel device from the upper rope. For 3 critical seconds, he was suspended by just his temporary safety line, his body swinging slightly in the vast emptiness of the pit. What final step remained in this dangerous process? He needed to attach his rappel rack to the lower rope below the knot and shift his full body weight onto it. One mistake here would mean disaster. But at 1:53 p.m., what catastrophic failure occurred? Something unexpected happened. The moment Trevor transferred his weight to the lower rope, what went terribly wrong? Everything collapsed at once. He felt a sudden, terrifying shift as the knot, which had appeared secure, began to slip under tension. What did the safety investigation later reveal? His carabiner, rated to hold 5,000 pounds when properly loaded, had been cross-loaded. Under the force of his 180-pound body weight while hanging free, the gate opened just 7 millimeters, enough for disaster. What happened to Trevor's safety backup? The safety tether, designed for temporary support rather than full body weight, snapped with a sharp crack that echoed through the chamber. How much time did Trevor have to save himself? None. He had no time to react. There was no chance to grab for anything. In a heartbeat, Trevor Cole was in free fall. What did Trevor experience during those final seconds? The air roared in his ears as he plummeted through darkness, the walls of the pit racing past in a dizzying blur. His headlamp beam created chaotic flashes against the limestone. Could his mind even process what was happening? No, there simply wasn't time. His body tensed instinctively, but physics offered no mercy. How fast was he falling? Starting at 32 feet per second and accelerating, nothing could stop his descent. For nearly 200 feet, how long did that take? About 4 seconds that stretched like eternity, he fell through empty space toward the cavern floor. At 1:54 p.m., what happened when Trevor struck the ground? The impact was immediate and catastrophic. How fast was he traveling? Nearly 60 miles per hour when he hit the stone floor. What happened to his body? The force crushed bone and ruptured organs instantly. Could his safety equipment save him? His helmet, though designed to protect against falling rocks and minor impacts, shattered under the sheer violence of the fall. Did Trevor remain conscious? For 3 seconds he tried to move, but couldn't. His awareness faded quickly as his body went into shock. Above, how did the 4 students react? They stood in stunned horror at the pit's edge. Though the tragedy had unfolded in mere seconds, how did time feel to them? Like an eternity frozen in place. Trevor had vanished into the darkness, followed by what haunting sound? A distant, sickening impact that echoed up through the chamber. What was their immediate response? No one spoke, no one moved. 4 sets of eyes stared down into the abyss, their headlamps cutting useless beams into the void. When did reality begin to sink in? After 30 seconds of silence, Michael, who had known Trevor since freshman orientation, whispered his name. Trevor? What answer came back? Complete silence, only water dripping somewhere in the darkness. What desperate attempt did they make next? Trevor! Michael called again, louder this time, his voice cracking with fear. Still nothing. What emotion overtook the group? Fear gripped them as the terrible truth became undeniable. Could anyone survive such a fall? No, a 227-foot drop would be fatal. Even if by some miracle Trevor was still alive, how would they reach him? They had no safe way down. Their gear was already stretched thin. They had planned to share equipment between them for the descent. At 2:07 p.m., what critical action did they take? Sarah fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. Despite the remote location, a single bar of cell service appeared. She dialed 911, struggling to explain the horrific accident in a breathless rush. Our friend fell. Valhalla Cave. The whole pit. He's not answering. When did professional help arrive? The Chattanooga-Hamilton County Rescue Squad reached the site at 3:40 p.m., followed by the Huntsville Cave Rescue Unit. What conditions did they face? By then, night had fallen completely, and the entrance to Valhalla Cave had become a black void in the earth, illuminated only by emergency floodlights casting harsh shadows across the scene. At 4:28 p.m., who began the recovery operation? Jim Donaldson, a 34-year-old paramedic with the rescue squad, eased himself into the pit. How did he descend? Slowly and methodically, his movements deliberate as years of training took over. What sounds filled the massive chamber? The heavy silence was broken only by his controlled breathing, the soft hiss of rope through his descender, and the occasional scrape of metal against rock. What grim news came at 4:47 p.m.? Donaldson's voice through the radio. Subject located. No vital signs. By 6:15 p.m., what crucial evidence did investigators discover? When they pulled the ropes back up for examination, their eyes immediately locked onto an alarming sight. Trevor's rappel rack was still attached to the rope, locked off exactly as he had set it before attempting to pass the knot. What chilling implication became clear? His rappelling equipment had not failed as they initially suspected. The descent system had been technically secure. What had gone catastrophically wrong? Something else entirely. At 7:40 p.m., what did the detailed inspection reveal? The grim truth became clear. Trevor's harness showed no signs of failure, but what critical equipment had malfunctioned? His carabiner, the crucial aluminum link in his safety system, was partially open. What tiny detail told the whole story? Rescue team leader Scott Powell spotted a small, almost imperceptible notch in the locking sleeve. What had physically happened during those fatal seconds? Under the force of Trevor's 180-pound body weight while hanging free, the carabiner had experienced cross-loading, pressure against its gate rather than its spine. This forced the gate open just 7 millimeters, barely the width of a pencil, but enough to allow his harness connection to slip free. During what critical moment did this occur? While transitioning from one rope to another, his primary connection had failed completely. What was the true cause of this tragedy? It wasn't a snapped rope as they had initially feared. It wasn't a major oversight in planning. What simple thing went wrong? A single mechanical failure, a cruel twist of fate that had sent Trevor plummeting into the abyss. Was there any hope of survival? None. There was no movement, no sign of life. The temperature at the pit bottom remained a steady 52 degrees as Donaldson checked for vital signs, following protocol despite knowing the outcome. What solemn message did he deliver? The lead rescuer took a slow breath before pressing the radio to his lips. His voice, steady but heavy with finality, crackled through the static. Victim located. Fatal injuries confirmed. No signs of life. Above ground, how did Trevor's friends receive the confirmation? The words settled over them like a suffocating weight. Though they had stood in shocked silence for nearly 3 hours, what made this moment different? Hearing it said aloud, final, unquestionable, made the nightmare real. The oldest of the group collapsed to his knees while another turned away, fighting back tears. What errors led to this tragedy? Their group had made calculations and assessed risks based on limited knowledge, but what critical danger had they underestimated? The extreme hazards of tying 2 ropes together for a vertical descent. What specific mistake proved fatal? They had overlooked the critical danger of placing the connection knot just below the lip of such a massive drop. What does the National Speleological Society say about this exact practice? Their guidelines specifically warn against it, a fact the students would learn too late. To what had they lost their friend? An accident that happened in less than 4 seconds. 4 seconds that changed everything. On November 23, 2019, Valhalla Cave claimed its 7th victim since 1975. The Jackson County Sheriff's report would later call it a preventable tragedy and note that a proper 250-foot rope would have cost just $175 to rent from an outdoor equipment store located 30 minutes from the cave entrance. Today, a small weatherproof box at the entrance contains a logbook and safety checklist established by the Trevor Cole Caving Safety Foundation. The cave does not forgive mistakes, but Trevor's story now saves lives by teaching others what his group learned too late.